They said a woman could get used to silence if she lived alone long enough. But on the first night he knocked on her cabin door, the silence inside her broke wide open, shattering everything she thought she knew about herself, about love, and about the danger that arrives wearing a stranger's face. Snow had begun falling in thick, lazy flakes, turning the world outside her window into a quiet, white blur. Miriam Ruth Coleman wrapped her arms around herself as she stood in the doorway of her small log cabin, listening to the wind moan like an old ghost. At 40, she had made peace with solitude, or at least she told herself she had. Life had taught her to protect her heart, men had taught her to guard her body. She'd watched the world rush around her, relationships bloom and die for others, while she stayed untouched. A virgin at 40 wasn't a title she wanted, but one life had forced on her. Her cabin, tucked deep in the Montana woods, was her sanctuary. She farmed a little, baked, read stories by the fire. No visitors, no neighbors except the distant ones who respected boundaries. But on that cold winter evening, everything shifted with a single knock. She opened the door and found him standing there tall, coat crusted with snow, hair dripping from the storm. A stranger, a drifter by the look of him. He gave her a timid smile that didn't match the ruggedness in his jaw. "Ma'am," he said, voice low and tired, "I'm not here to bother you. I need somewhere to wait out the night. The storm caught me." Instinct fought with compassion. She knew better than to invite any man inside, especially one who looked like he'd lived through a dozen bad stories. But the cold behind him was brutal, and the desperation in his eyes something she recognized from her own lonely winter nights softened her caution. "You can stay in the barn," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. He nodded without complaint. "Grateful, thank you." "Name's Elias." She watched him walk away, the snow swallowing his footsteps. She didn't know why her heart thudded like a trapped bird. She didn't know why she stood at the window afterward, watching the faint lantern glow in her barn long into the night. By morning the storm was worse, white out. No way he could leave. When she stepped outside to bring him food, she found him sitting, shivering, yet smiling gently as if he didn't want to scare her. "Didn't mean to be trouble," Elias said. "You're not," she whispered, surprising herself. The days passed. He fixed her fences, chopped wood, mended a broken chair. She wasn't used to someone doing things for her. Wasn't used to a man who never crossed boundaries, never looked at her with hunger, only warmth. And that, somehow, was more frightening. One night, as snow hammered against the cabin walls, the lantern flickered between them, casting soft shadows across his face. "You live all alone out here?" he asked. "Yes." "Don't you get lonely?" She swallowed. "Lonely is safer." But Elias didn't move closer. He just nodded as if he understood wounds he hadn't seen. "You're allowed to want more than safe," he said. Something in her, something she'd buried, stirred. For the first time in years, Miriam realized she wasn't afraid of the man in her cabin. She was afraid of the way he made her feel alive. And winter had only just begun. She thought the real danger was letting him stay, but when the path he'd been running from finally found him, she discovered the truth. Sometimes the biggest risk isn't trusting a stranger, it's trusting that you're worthy of the love he's willing to fight for. The storm raged for days, trapping Elias at the cabin. Miriam tried to tell herself his presence was temporary, but he fit into her days too easily. He laughed softly at her jokes. He listened when she spoke. He never pushed, never assumed, never hinted at anything she wasn't ready for. His gentleness cracked something open inside her that had been frozen for years. But one night they were preparing dinner, a distant echo rolled across the valley. Not thunder, not wind, gunfire. Elias froze. His expression changed, shadows sharpening his eyes. "Miriam," he said quietly, "we need to put out the lamps." Fear coiled in her chest. "You know who that was?" "I do." When she met his gaze, she realized the drifter who had knocked on her door hadn't been running from a storm. He'd been running from people. "They're not here for me because I did wrong," he said, voice trembling. "They're here because I saw something I wasn't supposed to. And they don't want witnesses." Her breath hitched. "You brought danger to my home. I know, I'm sorry, I never wanted that." But instead of running, she stayed beside him, shoulder brushing his head. They blew out lanterns, locked windows, moved quietly through the cabin. The fear she'd carried for years, the fear of men, of touch, of disappointment, felt different now. Smaller, because this wasn't a threat from him. This was a threat to him. For the first time, she wanted to protect someone. They hid in the dark as footsteps crunched outside. Voices argued in the wind. "She's just some woman. Bust the door if you have to." Miriam felt her stomach twist. Elias grabbed her hand. "I won't let them hurt you." But she surprised him by squeezing back. "We're not running." She led him through the cabin, retrieved the old rifle her father once kept for wolves. Her hands shook, but not with fear, with decision. When the door burst inward, the world erupted. Shouts, a crash, splintering wood. But Miriam stood her ground. She fired once, warning, shaking the attackers enough that Elias tackled the first man. They fought in the snow, breath steaming in the frozen air. Another shot rang from outside, but Miriam lifted the rifle again, voice cutting sharp through the storm. "Leave this land," she commanded, "or I swear you won't walk out." Maybe it was the fire in her eyes. Maybe it was the second shot she fired into the air. Maybe it was Elias pulling himself to his feet with fury blazing in his chest. Whatever it was, the men stumbled back, cursing, limping into the darkness. They fled. Silence returned. Heavy, electric. Elias stood before her, chest heaving, bruised but alive. "You saved my life," he whispered, eyes shining. She shook her head. "We saved each other." He stepped closer, not touching her, not assuming, just waiting. "If I stay," he said softly, "I want it to be because you want me here, not because winter trapped me." Her breath trembled. "All my life," she said, voice cracking, "I've been waiting for safety. But maybe I've been waiting for you." When his hand finally touched her cheek, slow, careful, reverent, she didn't flinch. She leaned into it, into him, into a future she once thought she didn't deserve. That winter, something thawed inside her that had been frozen for 40 years. She wasn't just safe, she was loved. And for the first time, she let herself believe she was worthy of it.